The day had been long, hot, and thankless. Eli Sparky Sullivan stood hunched over the hood of a '98 Silverado, sweat dripping down his neck, fingers stained with oil. Eastwood County was the kind of place where secrets rusted faster than metal. But Sparky had one no one suspected. He wasn't just the local grease monkey with a dusty garage. He was a millionaire, quiet, careful, and completely uninterested in the noise that came with money. He lived simple, wore old flannel shirts, drove a battered Chevy, fixed cars for folks who couldn't afford the dealership markups. People respected him, thought he was poor. That was fine. The town didn't need to know he owned half the industrial park on the outskirts, or that a tech patent he'd sold in his 20s still quietly deposited six figures into his account each quarter. He was tightening the last bolt on an exhaust manifold when he heard it, the cough and stutter of a luxury engine in distress. The sound didn't belong here. A midnight blue sedan, a Mercedes, sleek and clearly suffering, rolled into his lot, steam hissing from under the hood. The driver's door opened, and out stepped a woman who looked like she'd taken a wrong turn from Wall Street. Her heels crunched gravel. She wore black slacks, a silky white blouse, and a watch that probably cost more than Sparky's entire garage. But her face, tired, beautiful, guarded, held something familiar: frustration, exhaustion, maybe even fear. "Car died," she said shortly, eyes flicking over him. "The shop, the dirt." No warning. Sparky nodded. "Pop the hood. I'll take a look." She hesitated. "How much just to look?" He gave a crooked grin. First looks are always free. She didn't smile, but she popped the hood. The damage was obvious. Cracked radiator, leaking coolant, belt loose, a real mess. It had cost a couple grand to fix right. But he said nothing, just reached for his tools. 30 minutes passed. She sat on an overturned milk crate, scrolling her phone. Twice he caught her staring at him, not in the flirty way, curious, suspicious, like she couldn't figure him out. When he finally closed the hood, he wiped his hands and said, "You're good to go. I replaced the hose and topped your coolant. Should hold till you get to the city." She stood. "How much?" He shook his head. "No charge." That stopped her. "What?" "Didn't take long. Just pay it forward." Her eyes narrowed. "Why would you do that?" Sparky shrugged. "Why not?" She stared at him, unreadable, then got into her car. As she backed out, she rolled down the window. "What's your name?" "Eli. Folks call me Sparky." She nodded slowly. "Thanks, Sparky." Then she drove off into the setting sun, leaving a swirl of dust and something heavier in the air. He didn't know her name. Didn't need to. What he didn't realize was that the woman he'd just helped was Madeline Royce, CEO of Royce Dynamics, one of the youngest female tech billionaires in America. And this wasn't the last he'd see of her. 2 days had passed since Madeline Royce rolled into Eastwood County with a failing radiator and a mind drowning in deadlines. Back in her glass-walled office on the 38th floor of Royce Dynamics downtown Chicago HQ, she should have been focused on a board meeting, a product launch, and a hostile acquisition threatening her company's legacy. But her mind kept drifting to the mechanic. Sparky. He'd barely looked at her, hadn't asked her name, hadn't tried to upsell a thing. Just fixed her car and sent her off like it was nothing. No flirtation, no business card, no expectation. In her world, everyone always wanted something. Investors wanted dividends. Executives wanted raises. Journalists wanted stories. Lovers wanted access. But Sparky? He wanted nothing. And that disturbed her. So much that she did something reckless. On Friday morning, her assistant found her in jeans and a ball cap, keys in hand. "You're canceling your 10:30 with Senator Klein?" The assistant gasped. "I need air," Madeline replied. "Postpone it. Tell him my engine failed again." Technically not a lie. By noon, the Mercedes was back on the highway, purring like a lion, and Madeline was driving not north to the lakes, not west to the vineyards, but back to Eastwood. Back to that sleepy town with its dusty streets and rusted fences. Back to Sparky. She wasn't sure what she'd find. Maybe the garage would be closed. Maybe he'd forgotten her. Maybe she'd imagined the whole moment. But when she pulled into the lot, there he was, exactly the same. Worn boots, sleeves rolled, a smudge of grease on his cheek. Like time in this place moved slower. Like nothing here changed. He looked up, surprised but not stunned. "Back already," he said, shielding his eyes from the sun. Madeline stepped out slowly, nerves fluttering. "Car's fine. She cleared her throat. Wanted to say thanks again. In person. Sparky raised an eyebrow. You drove 2 hours just to say that? Madeline hesitated. And to buy you lunch. That made him laugh. A quiet, warm sound. You're serious? She nodded. Dead serious. You saved my week. He wiped his hands on a rag. You some kind of reporter? Looking for a human interest story? Not even close. You lost. No, she said softly. I think I'm exactly where I need to be. Sparky studied her, then tossed the rag onto the bench. All right then. There's a diner down the street. Brenda makes a mean chili. They walked side by side, two worlds colliding. Her boots pristine, his covered in dust. Townsfolk stared, whispered. A few even nodded. Madeline noticed it. They respect you. Sparky shrugged. I've been here a long time. They don't know. Know what? How rare you are. He didn't answer. But as they sat in that booth, ordering chili and cornbread, neither of them realized that something had begun. Something that would unravel secrets, shake lives, and make headlines neither of them wanted. Because someone else in Eastwood recognized her. And by tomorrow, the town would know exactly who she was. The bell above the diner door jingled as Madeline and Sparky stepped inside. It was the kind of place that hadn't changed in 30 years. Red leather booths, a jukebox in the corner, and the scent of bacon grease permanently embedded in the walls. Locals glanced up from their coffee and meatloaf. A few nodded politely. Others stared. Not at Sparky. At her. She felt it. Those sideways glances, the half-turned heads. She knew that look. Recognition. A face from the news sitting among the scrambled eggs and country gravy. They slid into a booth by the window. Sparky didn't notice the shift in air. But Madeline's instincts, honed from boardrooms and ambush interviews, flared. You all right? He asked, sipping water from a cloudy glass. She smiled quickly. Yeah, just hungry. They talked over chili and cornbread. Light things. He asked nothing personal, didn't pry. She learned he'd been fixing cars since high school, that he'd inherited the shop from a mentor, and that he liked quiet mornings before the phone started ringing. She didn't tell him about the billion-dollar merger she'd blocked last month, or the magazine covers, or the whispers that Royce Dynamics was heading toward a buyout. She needed, to be just a woman in a diner. For one more hour. But the illusion was slipping. In the corner, a teenage waitress whispered to another behind the counter. Then she disappeared into the kitchen, phone in hand. Madeline stiffened. Sparky noticed this time. What's wrong? She hesitated. Then exhaled. I think someone recognized me. He blinked. Should I know who you are? She gave a faint smile. Depends. Do you read Forbes? Nope. TechCrunch. He shook his head. Wall Street Journal? He grinned. You're really bad at hiding you're somebody. She leaned in. My name's Madeline Royce. I run a company called Royce Dynamics. It's big. Sparky leaned back, unreadable. You lied. No, she said quickly. I just didn't say. Most people treat me differently once they know. He looked out the window. And what did you expect from me? Exactly what you gave me. Kindness. Honesty. No agenda. The bell above the diner door jingled again. This time, it was a man in a sheriff's uniform. He walked straight to their booth. Ma'am, he said, tipping his hat. Sorry to interrupt, but folks are saying Madeline Royce is in town. That true? Madeline nodded slowly. It is. He smiled. Well, welcome to Eastwood. Sorry about the attention. We don't get many billionaires in Brenda's diner. Sparky watched her carefully. I'll leave you two to your lunch, the sheriff added, nodding respectfully. Then to Sparky. You sure know how to pick your lunch dates. As he left, a few patrons clapped softly. One woman even snapped a photo with her phone. Madeline groaned, hiding her face. Sparky leaned forward. So now what? She looked at him, eyes searching. Now it gets complicated. And it did. Because somewhere across town, a real estate developer had just heard the news. A billionaire in Eastwood? Suddenly, every property, every shop, every acre of land became a target. And Eli Sullivan's modest little garage? It was now worth a fortune, whether he wanted to sell it or not. By Monday morning, the story had spread faster than wildfire in August. The headline hit the Eastwood Gazette's online edition by 7 a.m. Billionaire CEO Madeline Royce spotted in Eastwood diner with local mechanic. By 8:30, 3 reporters had called Brenda's diner. By 9 o'clock, the town's one radio station was speculating whether she was buying land, starting a factory, or hiding from federal charges. And by 10:15, a black Escalade rolled up to Eli Sullivan's garage. The man who stepped out was tall, tan, and wearing loafers too clean for Eastwood. Reed Carrington, developer, investor, parasite in an Armani suit. He flashed a grin like he was trying to sell a yacht. "Mr. Sullivan," he said, offering his hand. "Heard about your little encounter with Ms. Royce. Quite a story." Sparky wiped his hands on a rag but didn't take the handshake. "Can I help you?" Reed's smile didn't flicker. "Actually, I'm here to help you. Word is, this garage sits on one of the last unclaimed commercial lots near Maine. I'm putting together a little investment group. Thought maybe you'd like to talk about a buyout." Sparky folded his arms. "Not for sale." Reed chuckled, reaching into his briefcase. "Everything's for sale, Mr. Sullivan." He pulled out a crisp folder. Inside, a printed offer. Over $1 million. For a shop that most people thought was barely worth 50 grand. Sparky stared at it, then handed it back without a word. Reed didn't flinch. "You might want to think about it. When people like Madeline Royce take an interest in a town, prices skyrocket. The smart ones cash out early." "I've been here 20 years, Sparky said. "This place is mine." "Exactly. That's why you deserve a real payday." Sparky's eyes narrowed. "What I deserve and what I want aren't always the same thing." Reed's grin finally faded. "Just don't wait too long. People are buying around you. And once development starts, you'll be boxed in. Noise, traffic, higher taxes. A smart man gets ahead of the curve." He left the folder on a nearby stool and walked back to his Escalade, shouting over his shoulder, "Think about it, Sparky, before someone else does." The engine roared and he was gone. Sparky stood still, watching the dust settle. He didn't open the folder. Didn't need to. He walked to the back of the garage, past rusted parts and locked tool cabinets, to a small room that no one but him ever entered. Inside, behind a false wall, was a steel safe. He opened it with steady fingers. Inside, for manila folders, stock certificates, deeds, bank statements. He wasn't just sitting on $1 million. He had 12, quietly earned, carefully hidden, investments made under other names. Accounts offshore, others domestic. He could have retired a decade ago, bought an island, vanished. But he stayed. Because Eastwood wasn't just a town, it was a promise. And no slick-talking developer was going to scare him out of it. He closed the safe and locked the room. But even he knew this was just the first knock on the door. Others would follow. Harder, louder. And he still had Madeline to worry about. Because something was pulling her back to Eastwood. And he wasn't sure whether that was the best thing that ever happened to him, or the worst. Madeline returned to Eastwood the next weekend. But this time, she didn't arrive quietly. A black SUV followed her. 2 assistants from the Chicago office. A laptop bag. And a list of properties in the area. Her company didn't know the full truth, but they knew something was brewing. She let them believe she was scouting real estate. She let herself believe it, too. But when she stepped into Sparky's garage again, he didn't smile this time. He stood by the workbench, arms crossed, grease on his forearms, gaze cool and unreadable. "You didn't mention the circus was coming to town," he said. She blinked. "Excuse me." He nodded toward the street, where the SUV idled. "Your people, your laptop, your corporate scent." "I'm working," she replied, trying to keep her tone even. "In Eastwood?" "Yes," she said. "And I wanted to see you." Sparky didn't move. "You should have called. I wasn't sure you'd pick up." A beat passed. Long quiet. Madeline stepped closer. "I heard about Carrington. He's circling this place like a vulture." Sparky smirked. "Let him circle. I'm not roadkill. I want to help. That's not what this looks like." She frowned. "What does it look like?" "Like you came back not for me," he said, voice low, "but for the land." Madeline flinched. "That's not fair, isn't it?" he asked. "Because from where I'm standing, I see the same thing Carrington sees. Another big shot with deep pockets sniffing around a little town too slow to fight back." "You think I'd take from you?" she whispered. "I don't know what to think, Madeline. I don't know you." Silence. The truth hung in the air between them like smoke. She stepped back, jaw tight. "I came back because I couldn't stop thinking about you. About what it felt like to be around someone real. Someone who didn't want a damn thing from me." Sparky looked away. "Well, maybe I was stupid. Maybe I should have asked." Her eyes burned. "You think I'm just like them? Just another rich kid trying to buy up the country?" He didn't answer, so she turned to leave. At the door, She stopped. You want the truth, Eli? I could buy this town 10 times over. I could bulldoze this garage, pave the street, and turn it into condos for bored tech brothers. Then why haven't you? He asked. She met his eyes. Because you're in it. She left without another word. Sparky stood there, surrounded by silence, the hum of fluorescent lights and the tick of a cooling engine. Part of him wanted to run after her. Apologize. Explain. But another part, the guarded part, reminded him what trust had cost him before. And neither of them knew it yet. But someone had just offered Carrington 5 times market value for the land next to the garage. And it wasn't Madeline Royce. The offer came in on Monday morning, through a fax machine, of all things. Eli Sullivan stood by the dusty corner of his office, reading the typed page with furrowed brows. $3. $2 million. All cash. For the vacant property next to his garage. No contingencies. No names. Just a holding company. Elmwell Ventures, LLC, registered in Delaware. Untraceable. He wasn't naive. People didn't throw money around without motive. Someone wanted Eastwood, and they wanted it bad. He stepped outside, eyes scanning the street. The empty lot next door had been a weed-filled patch of gravel for 15 years. No utilities. No structure. But suddenly it was worth millions? He walked to the fence, hands in his pockets. A white flag with an orange surveyor's mark had been planted in the soil. Fresh. Just hours old. Behind him, tires crunched. Reed Carrington. Same polished suit. Same fake smile. But now, the mask was thinner. Sparky, he said, stepping out of the car. Heard you got the fax. Eli didn't respond. Carrington chuckled. Not from me, if that's what you're thinking. I'm just the middleman now. Who's the buyer? He shrugged. Anonymous. But serious. And if they're buying this lot, he let the silence hang. They'll come for mine next, Sparky finished. Carrington smiled. I'd say it's inevitable. Eli turned. I told you. I'm not selling. Carrington walked closer, voice low. You don't understand. This isn't about you anymore. The land's not just land. It's part of a new infrastructure hub, fiber optics, logistics, last-mile distribution. Someone up high wants this whole block clean. I've been here 20 years. Then take the payout and retire. Go to Florida. Buy a boat. Eli's jaw tightened. What if I stay? Carrington's eyes darkened. Then you're standing in front of a train. And people like that, he nodded toward the mystery offer. Don't slow down. He got back in his car and drove off. Eli stood there, the wind kicking dust into the air. For the first time in years, he felt pressure, real pressure. The kind that couldn't be fixed with a wrench or a kind word. Later that day, he closed early, locked the doors, sat in the back office. He stared at the safe, at the wealth he'd kept hidden. He could fight. He had the money, the lawyers, the leverage. But fighting meant exposure. And exposure meant losing everything he'd built here. The quiet, the peace, the freedom to just be a man with a wrench. And then, as if summoned by fate, a knock at the door. He opened it. Madeline. Alone this time. No SUV. No assistants. Just jeans, a t-shirt, and eyes heavy with something he hadn't seen before. You were right, she said softly. About things getting complicated. He stepped aside. Let her in. Because ready or not, the storm had arrived. And they would have to face it together, or be torn apart. The garage was quiet, except for the ticking of a cooling engine and the creak of an old fan overhead. Madeline sat on a stool, elbows on her knees, hair pulled back. Not the CEO version of her, the armored one. This was the real woman. Tired, angry, and scared. They're coming after you, she said. And it's not just Carrington. He's a puppet. Eli leaned against the workbench. Then who's pulling the strings? She hesitated. Elmwell Ventures is a shell. But I traced the lawyers handling their paperwork. He raised an eyebrow. And she looked up. They work for Clayton Royce. Silence. Sparky blinked. Royce. As in, my father. The name hit like a wrench to the chest. Clayton Royce, former oil magnate, kingmaker, billionaire with a taste for power. Everyone in the business world knew him. Ruthless. Controlled. He hadn't spoken to Madeline in years. Not since she took her company public and refused to let him buy a controlling stake. Eli exhaled. So this is revenge. She nodded. He found out I was here. With you. He thinks you're a threat. Or maybe, she paused. He's trying to provoke me. Force me to react. Eli paced. If he buys the land next to mine, he'll pressure me out. Choke me with permits, taxes, inspectors. Or worse, she said. He'll bleed you dry, then offer a bailout. Publicly. Make it look like he's the hero and you're the stubborn fool. He leaned on the bench. So what now? Madeline stood. Now we fight. Eli gave a grim smile. You and me against a billionaire? Sounds like suicide. She stepped closer. I've fought him before. I know how he plays. He underestimates small towns. He thinks money moves everything. Doesn't it? She looked him dead in the eye. Not here. Not with you. They made a plan. Madeline would use her connections, quietly, to expose Elmwell Ventures. Track the money. Leak stories. Slow down development with red tape of their own. Eli would talk to the town council, rally the locals, remind them what Eastwood stood for. By midnight, they had a shared folder, 3 pots of coffee, and something else brewing between them. Something fragile, unspoken, but undeniably real. But just as the night felt safe, Eli's phone buzzed. A single text. Garage alarm tripped. South wall breached. He grabbed his keys, heart hammering. Madeline followed. When they arrived, the garage door was open. Nothing stolen. Nothing obvious. Except one thing. Eli's private office, ransacked. The safe? Wide open. And empty. Stock certificates. Bank records. The truth about who Eli Sullivan really was gone. Madeline stepped into the room, her eyes scanning the mess. This wasn't random, she whispered. Eli stared at the open safe. Jaw clenched. Breath tight. They knew exactly what to take. The next morning, Eastwood woke to more than just the usual smell of coffee and diesel fumes. It woke to headlines. Local mechanic linked to secret fortune. Eli Sullivan's hidden millions exposed. Eli stood at the diner's entrance, a folded newspaper in his calloused hands. The headline burned through him. Beneath it, a grainy photo of him outside his garage, and another, his bank statements, half redacted, but unmistakable. Who leaked this? He growled. Madeline sat at the counter, phone in hand. Her face was pale. It hit 3 blogs last night. Then the local paper. Now regional news is picking it up. I never told anyone, he said. No one knew. No one except. He stopped cold. Madeline froze. Except me. He shook his head. No, not just you. He pulled out his phone. Scrolled. Found the name. Jake Landry. His former protege. A kid he'd taken in years ago, trained in engines and loyalty. Jake had left town 2 years back, claiming he wanted to start fresh in California. Now, Eli remembered. Jake once helped with accounting. Had access to the old safe. Might have made copies. And now he was back in town. Quietly. Working under Carrington's payroll. He sold me out, Eli muttered. Madeline nodded grimly. Your fortune gets out. You look like a liar. The town turns. The council loses trust. They start asking who you really are. And meanwhile, he added, Carrington buys up every empty lot with the public cheering him on. The betrayal burned deeper than the exposure. Eli never cared that people thought he was poor. That was the point. But now the why was twisted. To them, he was a fraud. He stepped outside, where a few townspeople stood awkwardly on the sidewalk, holding papers, whispering. He heard it. He's been rich this whole time. Guess he didn't really care about us. Must have been laughing at us while we begged for discounts. Madeline came out behind him. You have to talk to them, she said. They don't want the truth. They want to believe you're still one of them. Prove it. Eli turned to her. And what about your father? I'll handle him, she said. But we can't win this if the town turns against you. He exhaled, stepped forward, and raised his voice. Yeah, I'm wealthy. I've been for a while. But I stayed here because this is my town. I fixed your cars for next to nothing. I plowed roads after snowstorms. I sponsored Little League from a fake company name so no one knew. I never wanted a parade. I wanted peace. The crowd grew still. A few people shifted uncomfortably. Some turned away, but others stayed. Then Brenda, the diner owner, crossed her arms and said loudly, He fixed my truck 3 times. Never charged me once. Another man added, He pulled my boy out of a ditch during the flood last spring. And slowly, the tide turned. But just as hope returned, Madeline's phone buzzed. She read the screen, and her face changed. What is it? Eli asked. She showed him. A photo. Of her. Of Eli. Together. Kissing behind the garage. Taken from a distance. And the caption. Royce heiress romantically involved with secret millionaire mechanic. Conflict of interest? Or calculated move? It had been sent anonymously. to every major news outlet in Chicago. By noon, Eastwood wasn't just a sleepy town anymore. It was a headline. Love and Lies in Eastwood. Royce heiress in scandal with hidden millionaire. Billionaire mechanic? The strange double life of Eli Sullivan. Satellite vans parked outside the diner. Reporters walked the streets, sticking microphones in the faces of locals. A helicopter even circled once before peeling off west. Inside the garage, Eli and Madeline sat in silence. The photo was everywhere. Their private moment, splashed across TV and social feeds. Her lips on his hands in her hair, turned into tabloid fuel. It was only a matter of time, she whispered. Eli clenched his jaw. We've lost the narrative. No, she said, standing. We just need to take it back. But before she could make a plan, her phone rang. She looked down. The caller ID froze her blood. Clayton Royce. She hesitated, then answered. Put him on speaker. Madeline, came the cool, commanding voice. I'm disappointed. She straightened. I know. Do you? You've compromised the company's name. You've attached yourself to a man with no pedigree, no protection, and no loyalty. Eli raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. I've spent 30 years building the Royce name, Clayton continued. And you've tied it to grease and scandal. I'm not yours to control, she said. You were never mine, he replied. But your company still carries my blood. You have two choices. Madeline's hands shook. Say it. 1. Distance yourself from Mr. Sullivan. Publicly. Deny the relationship. Claim it was a misunderstanding, a brief misstep. I'll handle the rest. And 2. Stay with him, and I take Royce Dynamics from you. I've been preparing. Quietly. Board votes, shareholder manipulation. One press conference, and your empire burns. The line went dead. Silence. Eli stood. He's bluffing. She looked at him with dead certainty. He never bluffs. Eli paced. Then we go public. We fight. Expose him. She shook her head. He's too powerful. Too connected. If I fight, I lose everything. My company, my credibility, my seat at the table. Eli looked at her, eyes tight with pain. Then walk away. From me. From this. If it protects your legacy. Madeline stepped forward, grabbed his shirt. Don't you dare make that easy for me. I'm trying to protect you, he said. I don't want protection, she snapped. I want you. This. Us. But at what cost? He whispered. They stood there, inches apart, their world unraveling around them. And then, another knock. A courier. Delivery for Eli Sullivan. Eli signed, opened the envelope. Inside, a cease and desist. From Elmwell Ventures. A threat of legal action. Claiming property encroachment, code violations, breach of zoning rights. Demanding he vacate the garage within 60 days or face court. Eli looked at Madeline. She looked at the paper. Then she said, voice steel. Then we burn it all down together. 2 weeks later, Eastwood looked like a town preparing for war. Not with guns or barricades, but with clipboards, cameras, and lawyers in expensive suits. Carrington's team surveyed land daily. Town council meetings tripled in attendance. Protest signs popped up in windows. Save Sparky's garage. Eastwood is not for sale. Eli Sullivan had become a symbol, and symbols attract fire. Clayton Royce launched his offensive through whispers first, then subpoenas. Royce Dynamics distanced itself from Madeline. The board scheduled a vote to remove her as CEO. News anchors dissected her reckless entanglement with a secretive small-town millionaire. Through it all, Eli stood tall, grease under his nails, dust on his boots. But his heart cracked quietly, until the night Madeline showed up at his garage in a hoodie and jeans, holding a flash drive. I have something, she said. Something big. Inside the flash, confidential emails, bank records, internal communications, all proving that Elmwell Ventures was a personal tool of Clayton Royce, used for illegal land manipulation and corporate espionage. How did you get this? Eli asked. I broke into my father's private archive. Left enough of a trail to make it look like an internal whistleblower. If I go down, I go down as the truth teller. Eli stared at her. You're giving up your company. She nodded. It was never really mine. Just a bigger cage. He took her hand. You sure? Madeline smiled. I'm sure of one thing. The next morning, they went public. Together. A press conference on the steps of Eastwood's courthouse. Eli wore his oil-stained flannel. Madeline wore no makeup, just fire in her eyes. They told everything. Who Eli really was, what Royce was doing, how power corrupts, and how love doesn't have to. The story exploded. By evening, Royce Dynamics Board issued a statement condemning Clayton Royce's private actions. Shareholders revolted. The FCC opened an investigation. And the Elmwell Ventures acquisition deal? Frozen. Carrington vanished overnight. The cease and desist? Withdrawn. And the garage? Still standing. Weeks passed. Reporters left. Lawyers retreated. Eastwood returned to slow mornings and coffee at Brenda's. But one thing had changed. Eli installed a new sign on the garage. Sullivan and Royce Auto. Honest work, no games. Madeline handled PR, emails, and, to her own surprise, carburetor repairs. Locals dropped by more than ever. And when someone from the New York Times asked Eli if he regretted going public, he only said, "I lost my peace and got a woman worth fighting for. Seems like a fair trade." That night, after locking up, they stood outside. The stars were sharp. The air still. Madeline leaned on his shoulder. "We could have lived in a penthouse." Eli kissed her temple. "I'd rather smell like diesel and be in love." They laughed, and the town slept, not knowing that behind that old garage door, two millionaires had finally found what money couldn't buy. Home.